Good morning. Let me turn this down. So if you want to say hi with a like, you can double tap the screen or let us know where you're coming from. You're more than welcome in what I call my chaotic classroom. I like everything to be interactive. As I talk about these things today, you can tell me what comes to mind as I'm speaking. That's kind of the point of this work, which is how do we learn about ourselves, our minds, how we enter into situations. Codependency generally forms at such a young age, at an implicit stage of development, that meaning like we're unconscious, we don't know the difference between self and other, we're just trying to survive and get along and figure ourselves out, figure our environment out, and that's when codependency starts to form. So as a meta mindset. And it is a relational way, it's a way of relating to others. It is an interpersonal dynamic. And that's why I bring up dating issues, because a lot of people with codependent mindsets tend to walk into situations, looking for companionship, looking for people to get along, whatever, friends even. Or relationships with their family members, and they don't recognize what they are doing. And definitely, if you like this, double tap the screen, keep it up, and it'll go out to more people. But if you are walking into these situations blindly with a codependent, interpersonal way of relating, you are going to, as an adult, not necessarily as a kid, but as an adult, thank you for that, you're going to have a lot of issues and start to get pretty confused about why situations are working out the way they are, why you feel used, you feel fearful. And I'm going to talk about these things. You feel afraid of being vulnerable. And I hope that you can see that. When I put the graphic on and I was doing it, it definitely wasn't this dark. So if you have a problem seeing the graphic, let me know, and I will definitely tell you what it says. So absolutely, so true. Sun goes out, says, or sun's out. So true. Ever since I became a narcissist, I really focus better on me. That's interesting. Well, if we want to go there, to be, what happens is we have a healthy stage of narcissism. It's called childhood. Children are their own center of their universe. They don't know about empathy. They don't understand about other people and what their effects on them are. We call this primary narcissism in infancy. And it's necessary, folks. We needed actually, and thank you for the follow, we need narcissistic, meaning self, just about us, not about them, not self, you have to have somebody give you self resources, like, oh, you're so cute, not, oh, you're so cute because you look just like me, right? We need people, our parents and people around us, to actually give us these resources unselfishly, so we build up an idea of ourselves that is loved, lovable, and that's a sense of self that, again, is not, and then we can modulate that over time, meaning like we can pour those resources into our children and they have a strong sense of self and self-esteem, and that's a narcissistic resource. But what happens later is that's like a square, and we start to round that off with reality, meaning this person's, also has that, oh, I'm not the only one. And children start to figure out that, again, they're in a world, right? And then they can relate to other people in difference. But we need that beginning stage. And in some ways, I say, from going from codependency to a healthy emotional place does take focusing on providing yourself that original resource. And it has semblance to primary narcissism. You have to be able to give yourself that now, though, because we can't look for others to do it any longer. We miss that, but that's okay, because we can give it to ourselves better. You know what? You're saying something interesting about guys. Actually, it's the opposite for boys. Boys have to learn narcissistic traits to become less selfless. You can explain a little bit about that. I like that. I think that one of the reasons why I've put out codependent men, even though it applies to all of us in any way, is to reach the male population, because the algorithm pushes me out to 96% female, so I have to do something like that. But I really do think there is a difference in the way that we are emotionally raised, and that narcissism in some ways, boys definitely can get a lot. Hey, from Rhode Island, boys can get a lot of, girls tend to feel like the boys are given favor because they're stronger, or they can go faster, or they can, whatever, they're performative. However, women get a lot more emotional kudos. Oh, you're so helpful. You're so nice. That is a wonderful thing, that you're doing for me. And they feel like good people. I think boys tend to be left out of that. They stay on the outskirts in some ways. So I would love for you to say more on how you feel boys have to take up narcissistic qualities in order, to survive. My kids are grown, and I'm still working on being a better parent, because adult kids need love, guidance too. I love this statement. I just talked about this last night, by the way. I don't know if you saw it. Thank you for the rose, which is parents, and I work with adults, or I did, adults and adult children, to what I called last night in the last couple posts was update the mental map, because your children need you to be there and as a parent in a more complex ways as they grow. It was easy when you could change a diaper, or you could feed them, or you could tie their shoes. That's easy compared to what needs to happen within you to connect with your child as their needs become more complicated, more intellectual, more problem solving, more give them space to grow and know when to back off, boundaries, and seeing them as adults, and welcoming them to present themselves as such, allowing for that to happen. Because a lot of times in their 20s, they're going to start to feel a little bit more like, hey, I have experiences in different places in different ways, and maybe I'm moving outside of what's comfortable for the family dynamic. I have different ways of thinking about, things that I'm interested in. And that, I think that's really so much fun. Like, in some ways, it can also be, again, that frustration that causes growth, right? So not a negative one necessarily, but you, as parents, we always do need to be looking in the mirror and seeing, are we really relating to people? Are we really connecting, or are we doing something else? So this was a great lead off. And if anybody has any other questions, you can definitely, or comments, let me know as I go on. I'm going to talk about, as we go into this sphere of dating, what kind of person are you attracted to? I was recently working with somebody who is out of a toxic relationship and back and wanting to date. They're ready now. They've had enough time to go through that grieving anger stage. They've seen that that's enough of that. They really want to be out in the world again and meet people and have these experiences. But they're finding, right as they go out, that there's a real fear of being vulnerable. And that is shown through, and codependent people do have this massive fear of being vulnerable. It's shown through 9 messages and it's not scrolling. Sorry about that, guys. Thank you for that. So I think that that's the thing, is like, if you can look at the person that you're attracted to, what we're finding is we can, thank you so much, absolutely, is like we can look at, wait a second, the person I'm attracted to reminds me of somebody that, that is connected to my self-esteem and self-worth. I notice that I don't, let's go on the dating app kind of scenario. If I swipe right on everyone that looks like they might like me and swipe left on anyone that looks like they're well put together. They've got their shit together. They look good. They have a good profile. They're professional. They're all the things that we want, right? We would think that we want in somebody because we just got out of a very codependent relationship or a very toxic, enabling relationship. And we would think that we would want somebody that isn't broken or that isn't half there or doesn't have a lot of issues or knows what they want. But what happens is we're attracted again to people that need us, that we can impress, that we could possibly offer something to. And the reason why is because there is no vulnerability in that. There's still this like hierarchical connection, folks. And it is in some ways, you have to figure out, wait a second, why am I attracted to this person? Does this have something to do with me fearing myself, like if I get rejected? Because vulnerability is about being emotionally honest, saying, hey, I'm here, I show up, I'm emotionally valuable, and I like you. I want to connect with you. I don't need you to offer me anything, and I don't want to have to offer you something other than the desire to connect and spend some time with you. That is like profoundly different way of relating to people than what happens in a codependent mind, which is traditional ways are half toxic. Absolutely. And I think we have to catch that. And double tap the screen if you like this, and then it'll send it out to more people too. Or share it if you know somebody else is just scrolling through. I need to learn more about this way you're speaking about, digging deep. That's right, because in some ways, codependency is, we had to be so superficial. We had to always, superficial, I mean like external. We couldn't go deep within ourselves. And what we're always finding is that when we really do turn back, I mean, all of these things that I list, fear of being vulnerable, self-esteem and self-worth, and fear of rejection, all tie into what's deeper. And so what happens is, thank you for that. What happens is that what I'm asking, the questions that I'm asking are the kind of the external, the surface. I want you to start thinking about what kind of person you're attracted to, and you're going to find that you're attracted to a person that you could easily offer something to, that you could take care of, that you think that would find you attractive because the way that you show care, go to the next part, is by making sure that you show up being interesting, being cool, being able to fix it, being the problem solver, being the caretaker. All of these things are what your self-worth is, not about your desire. Now, wait a second, not about your desire to learn. I'm sorry, your desire to be present and show up and connect and want to learn about a person and then learn about you. Do you see what I'm saying? And this is because there isn't like what's in there. I haven't been able to investigate that, if I don't, and I'm not doing all of this external stuff. So you do need to learn about yourself in a very serious way. Like there is something about codependency that has drawn our attention outside of us for so long. And we can learn about so many people and teach them all the things that they need to know, but we don't know ourselves and know what it is that we want. So, and thank you for that. Good morning. We got a lot of suns on here this morning. I love that. I like this. Fire Twins is a support group that understands you're going to be drawn back into abusive relationships. Cool. Right on. Fire Twins. I like that support group idea. And I think that that's, what we're doing now in some ways too, because really came from Matt's life. Oh, sweet. You could always tell me about how that goes. Or bring some insight from that, because I think when we're talking about these kinds of issues, we're also talking about, we are talking about interpersonal style, so attachment style. But attachment style is really cool because attachment style tells you how your parents attach to you. And so it gives you even more insight into maybe tendencies of how you go about it. And I think this last one here, if you don't learn from the past. Yes, well, I think that's pretty true. And when we get out of toxic relationships, if we stay focused on the person that we left and saying in that grief anger stage of our healing, we're not going to get to the part that I'm talking about now. And luckily I'm working with people to get to this next stage, which really is to start looking at how fearful of vulnerability and true connection you really are. Think about the fact that you've been with somebody that couldn't connect. If you were with a narcissist, you were with a human being that psychologically it's impossible for them to empathize or connect with you on a real level. So how do you know how to connect with anyone? Codependency is all about taking care of the other. Is that connecting? That's just taking care and control and all sorts of different things. So real connection has to come from a place of vulnerability, of acceptance of the person might not work out, and also of deep self-love and self-worth. It has nothing to do with taking care of people. Nothing, zero. And what it has to do with is taking care of yourself, seeing yourself as valuable, knowing that you don't have to wash dishes in order for you to be accepted. You don't have to solve somebody's problem in order for them to see your value. You are valuable in and of yourself. So that's how a lot of times we get caught up in thinking, oh, we're just going to go date again. We're good people. But wait a second. Do we know how to have boundaries and still connect? And a lot of times the boundaries go out. I got to take care of you. And now here we go. I got to go fast. And I want to make sure that I'm going to read a little bit of I'm going to make sure that you don't leave me. I'm an oversharer. Okay, hey, I'm an spouse fanatic says, and I just learned the difference between transparency and honesty. Say more about that, because I'd like for this point, really the fear of being vulnerable as really the central feature of this, like to really think about what, if you are ever, when are you? And why not? And why? When does it come out? And you can talk about this too. After three long-term relationships that failed, I'm fearful of trusting, but still open, but not eager. Discover that now and here to learn. Yes. Thank you for sharing the video. I think definitely, this is the thing, is that we have to think about relationships in a different way. And that's good that you understand that you are, let's just say this, and I'm not trying to reframe your thoughts, but I think another way of looking at 3 long-term relationships that didn't work out is that still there is a tendency in you to be attracted to people that are not at the place that you really deeply want to be with a person. They might act like in the beginning, yes, I really want to be in this relationship with you and I really find you awesome, and you're like, okay, great, but you trust them so soon. You combine, and this is, how fast do you want to get intimate? I really like this question for people with codependency, because I think it's an attachment style called merger. I want to merge. I want to immediately get intimate with you because that will make me feel loved, valuable, and then emotionally connected to you, because I can't do it verbally. Because people with codependent issues, I gotta listen to you, and codependency means my connection to you is about helping you, not about helping me, filling me, understanding what I want. It's about you. So I have to get intimate with you. And that is dangerous, because that chemically combines people. That makes them merge. And that's a regressive state. And if you don't have any boundaries because of codependent tendencies, man, you're again now in this chaos, in this water that you can't tell that, like, whoa, what's up and what's down, and now you get hurt again. So I think that's, and I'm going to read a little bit more about what she was talking about when it came to transparency and honesty, because we're talking about vulnerability as well. Being separate people and not merging, not being intimate right away is more vulnerable than giving it all you got there right at the beginning. I'm anxious attachment. I thought I was transparent and they would be too, and I could trust them. Hard to say within the characters given. Yeah. I thought I was transparent. That's take too long to, my problem, I have difficulty, I take too long to become intimate. Well, that then is the opposite of, I'm going to rush into it in order to avoid vulnerability. I'm not going to get to it. That's when you're on the other end of the spectrum. Do you know that you're actually very much like the same thing? So that's the thing, is like vulnerability, because once I do that, I know I'm emotionally lacking boundaries. And you could also be sensing that if I do this, I know that I go into that state. Remember, because when you actually are intimate with somebody, there's something more that happens, and you cannot just, pretend like your mind isn't going to be altered in some ways. And if you're not strong enough, and double tap the screen and like this and share it too, if you relate to what I'm saying, so I can see as well. If I know when I teach, people start to listen and and they get like intensely listening. But if I see that what I'm saying makes sense to you with the likes, that helps me to know that when you're listening and when you're responding and when you're having associations. I hate losing control over my feelings. That is so important to note. And we're gonna pull back on that one, because I want to go back to what Spouse of an Addict was saying with transparency and honesty. I think there's more to a relationship when it comes to interpersonal connection and dynamic that takes quite a bit of back and forth in work. Assumptions about a parenting relationship, assumptions about an intimate partner relationship, assumptions about a child, and how those relationships are supposed to go, how those conversations are supposed to go, how that dynamic is supposed to work if I am this way. It's harder than that. Relationships take quite a bit of work. So we can be open, let's say, and I'm not sure if transparency is what you mean, but we can be open with somebody and them not be able to understand first round, here we go. I'm not able to really understand what you're saying, and I become defensive or I misunderstand you. And that hurts because you're trying to be open. But that's why I say is like, and I have that masterclass that's free about doing the emotional communication with your partner when it's on a difficult topic. You do need to go into it with expectations in a realistic place and some amount of objectivity. And I call it objectivity as an internal boundary where I can walk up to you and I know that me being open and vulnerable might actually trigger something in you because you're not the one starting the conversation. So I have some empathy for maybe where this is going to land in you, and I stay back from that. Empathy is objectivity in some ways too. So I'm not sympathy, not over feeling for someone and not taking that personally, but that work is so important, I think, in being able to emotionally but verbally connect with somebody. It takes quite a bit of time. I would share everything. They didn't earn my trust, and narcissists knew how to be the hero. Oh, well, yeah. Somebody does. And by the way, as you were saying, an oversharer, I find, even if you overshare with somebody that's more narcissistic, they will really misrepresent in their own mind, remember, because they're not relating to you. They're only using their own experiences and their own psyche. They can't relate to you with an empathy that, yeah, they're going to see that as, oh, maybe in some ways too, I can, it's poor you, I can save you. And it's not help you. It's not really understand you. It's not respect where you came from and see that as wow, that's a lot of experience you've got there. It is, I'm going to save, or I'm going to rescue. And that is going to give me more narcissistic resources because you need me. So that's not, and that a lot of times is the vulnerability there, folks, is like, yeah, now you got yourself into, that claws are in, as far as, the codependent person now feels obligated to also taking care of the narcissistic, needs of that person that's narcissistic, making sure that they feel special, they feel center, they feel important. So let's see what, I attracted chameleons who became what I needed. Whew. Yeah. Wow. And women a lot of times do that, and men a lot of times do that. I think I haven't seen as many, but, I absolutely, you're right. And Creole, I'm also kind of following what you're saying, but on this line of thought, when I talk to men, codependent men, and we might have some here today too, and women, obviously, but I found that, I'm getting really, their stories are, I'm getting along with this woman so well, or I'm getting along with this person so well, and I'm really reading up on their interest, and I really like to buy them the food that they like, and they just start to take up all the interest, research it, offer their time, offer their resources, their money, their whatever, their weekends to go and make sure that this person's dreams come true. This person's interests are what feed them. And that can be very difficult because in the end, that person that is receiving all of this, again, this is right in the beginning, might not, we're dating here, folks, or we're just getting to know somebody, might not really appreciate these things like you think they are. And again, why are you giving so much? What about receiving something? And I think receiving something when it comes to dating and when it comes to getting to know someone, especially when you don't know them yet, is very, very frightening. Receiving something. Receiving the compliment, receiving the help, receiving the thing that says, I see you, I want to be with you, and that's when vulnerability really comes to the surface, because as soon as you say, okay, they can also say, well, but not anymore. And who knows what it's going to elicit from you. We try to stay out of this place where we become emotionally connected to what we really want. We want to stay in the fantasy of getting it one day. And a lot of times, good, I'm glad that that's resonating, as that a lot of times what happens is when that fantasy actually becomes real, and maybe we even meet a healthy person, we can do things to sabotage it. We can become scared. We can start to want to run away. We can start to make ourselves less available. We can send missed messages. But again, because the person is now wanting to give us something and really wanting to connect with us, that's frightening. So I want you to watch for that, because why not? Why not open up and allow yourself to love yourself and see what that person is doing as equal to who you are, instead of manipulating who you are, because who you are isn't just an always caregiver, problem solver person. You don't need a person that's half there or broken or has a bunch of problems in their life for you to date them. So you feel like you can stay in emotional control of yourself because they need you. Well, that's fun. right? But that's a lot of times what we get into, and it can be really exciting at first because that person's like, wow, you're so great, you're so helpful. Oh Lord, I did that too. I would attach too quickly, and on an unhealthy level, I thought that was love. I think that again, that how quickly do you get intimate? How quickly do you attach? Yeah, I mean, is really about kind of turning on those love sensors again, where maybe this is the one, and really the story, the fantasy, the fairy tale. I think, and anybody can talk about this, but I did a post on it, and actually it was stitched a couple times. I thought it was pretty cool that people really liked it, but the codependent model for relationships was so devoid of love and interpersonal, as far as your parents are concerned and the family dynamic. You didn't learn what healthy love was. You didn't learn how to talk to your spouse through your parents. You didn't learn how to love without touch or affection. You didn't learn how to verbally connect and appreciate difference among family members. This is something that doesn't happen often, folks. So when we go out, how do we conceive of love? Then what are we looking for? We watched Disney, we read love stories, rom-com, we read books, and then there's the tradition that's so deeply ingrained, obviously, in our psyche. So we go out in the world thinking, oh, we're going to meet our knight in shining armor, or we're going to meet our queen, and it's going to be, somewhat happily ever after. That's actually how general it is, and a lot of times we are looking for somebody to rescue us or to redeem us or show us through this relationship that we're going to have, how we're going to have our castle and our power and all of these things, and live this way. And it's so far from reality that we're left in this state of total chaos. And I find that's meaning like, oh, I'm in this relationship, I don't know what's up from down. Well, because we're cyclically living in a place that doesn't even exist. And then boom, there's the reality. And it looks like you are all talking a lot while that was happening. The 3-date rule, keep going. I want to teach and show my kids better. I want a tool bag to give them. You know what? But, and I say this, be the representative, the model, parents that model this behavior in front of children, like communicating effectively and talking through things, appreciating difference and using language that shows that, the child actually learns from observation more than telling, because so the teaching aspect and the modeling aspect in the home, modeling is actually more effective at this. And this is how you learned. Again, and that's why I'm talking about codependency so much, is because it's so implicitly, right, unconsciously at such a young age, programmed or pressed into the mind. So yes, absolutely. Thank you, TikTok. I would love if ever something like it go wrong. Let's see. I am reading this and more equipped because you come in with flaws as well. Yeah. Oh, and I want to say this, as we were kind of on this topic of the fear of rejection. A lot of times people will fall for individuals that they meet that accept them. Say you're an overshare, you tell them all this stuff about your past and all this upsetting stuff, or where you're coming from, or that you haven't really made it yet, and all the normal things in life that we're all so ashamed about, that we're not millionaires by 30 and figured life out and have perfect children. Somebody that accepts that you're human, but you're thinking they're accepting you for all these flaws. You're like, oh my God, somebody that's accepted me, that I like enough. Oh, this is wonderful. Oh, this is perfect. Oh, I'm there with you. I'm going to give myself up because you accepted me being a human? Wait a second. So I just like to really point that out, because bring yourself down a size. You're a human. People with codependency also have a tendency of thinking perfectionism is the standard, or have these huge grand ideas that they want to put into place in reality and don't understand how much work it's going to take on you to get there, and then fall short and feel like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. Well, oh, I'm the problem. I'm the failure. So taking things very hard and being hard on yourself. So I think that this is what I'm trying to say is like, we're not looking for, and this is the last thing, is that we're not looking for somebody to accept us because we're so self-rejecting. You need to accept yourself and your humanity and have some perspective that respects everything that you've been through, everything that you've done, everything that you've conquered. And that's why I called my community Emotional Warriors, because I really think if codependent people look back at their life and take inventory, they're going to see a really strong, a strong, resilient, very smart, emotionally, and in other ways too, person that can pretty much do anything they put their mind to if they start to invest in believing in themselves instead of looking for somebody else to believe in them, validate them, fall for them, and maybe they're going to give me the opportunity. I'll find myself there. That is something that in dating is huge. And narcissists can say all sorts of things because all they're doing is they see you as a mirror and they say all these wonderful things. And that's a reflection right on back. And you don't see it. You're like, oh my God, no boundaries. Oh, it's coming in. This is wonderful. This is like sunlight. I'm just getting filled up with all their narcissistic stuff. Wait a second. It has nothing to do with you. Take inventory again. They don't even know me. How does this really how does this really work? And I think anybody that starts to pour it on, you need to see as a red flag, because you don't need it. In some ways too, what you really need is somebody to see you and appreciate you, and obviously validate these experiences. And validate meaning they see it, they don't need to accept it and have sympathy and all these kinds of things and misunderstand. I love all of the comments, and I thank you for doing the likes now. That helps me so much. Keep going. Yes, I wanted to be accepted. That's a huge part. And and this acceptance is something that is very, and I want to be clear, is a wish from childhood about bringing you in, accepting you for who you are, not saying, no, you have to take care of mommy. Oh, you have to take care of daddy because we're having a hard time. No, I accept you. Let me take care of you. And we are still looking for that love. We're still looking for that level of acceptance. And that's dangerous because nobody's going to be able to give that to us. We can understand that that's what we were looking for and have empathy for ourselves, not be hard on ourselves, but then start to strengthen, because the sooner you start, again, I do this exercise, taking inventory of your life, the sooner you're going to see you have pretty strong legs on the ground, you have walked a strong path, and you are ready to start really internalizing. We call that integrating. So you can start to build your own self-esteem, your own self-worth. That's how you do it. And you have to do a little bit each day. Oh, and by the way, yes, let's see. In the beginning, I'm beginning to think there is no such thing as love. I think, love is a powerful feeling. I wouldn't say there's no such thing. I think that it's something that is misrepresented in society as, oh, you're the one. Oh, that's love, that chemical release when we're making love or we're having sex. Oh, it's, I see you across the room and, 10 years from now, we have 2 kids. Love, there's a wonderful book called The Art of Love, and by Eric Fromm, and there's stages of it. This isn't about love being one thing. love is something that, yes, you can feel, and yes, it's biological, but we also have there's many facets to it. And if you're not interested in really being in a relationship where you stay connected and you work through things, and that love won't grow, right? That love will fade. That love will not, that initial love that you feel will fizzle out. Real love, I think, is something that, like with your children, that is built over time through experiences, through working through support, through supporting you. It's this exchange, and it's this understanding that's built over time and becomes very strong and powerful. And I absolutely believe people can find partners that want to be in relationships, don't need to be in relationships, and want to do this work, and for the reason of love, because they love their partner. So I absolutely say, if you're in couples therapy, why are you here? Because if you're not here to understand your partner, because the motivation should be love, it really should be love, that you want to understand them, empathize, understand their attachment style, understand what their needs are as far as emotionally are concerned. If you're doing this transactionally, or you're not really present, it's not going to work. So anybody in a therapy stage that is, not doing that, be careful. Yes, love is benefits, has respect, support emotion, absolutely. I actually, what right now, and not virtual therapy, but what I do is, to be really honest, and as we're kind of wrapping up here, I have found as a therapist that what I'm doing right now with you is what I did with one person at a time for a much higher cost. So I said, you know what, I'm really passionate. I'm somebody that is a teacher by heart, and my nature is to teach. So I said, I'm going to move on to creating a community. So I have an online learning community where we can have conversations just like you're having now. This is about as vulnerable as people get in therapy. I mean, obviously I could see you, and you can come on to my website, biancagrace.com, and you can become, it's $27 a month, which I think is awesome. And I do live coaching sessions today. And so second and third Tuesday at 4. And I will bring you on, and see you if you want to do a hot seat kind of session, and you can tell me the issue and we can work through it, within reason, obviously, there for a minute. And then, other people get a chance to do it too. So this is what I'm passionate about now. I think therapy is great, but I also think doing group work is actually faster growth than talking about one person, or talking to one person at a time. And you getting good at talking about your experiences helps you start to strengthen and not feel so vulnerable or ashamed about what it is you want to understand, and start to figure out pretty rapidly. A lot of people understand also what you're talking about, and it's such a relief for them to hear you say it. So group work has a lot more potential, I think, for people to relate to one another and heal that fear of vulnerability. Yes, people don't. Yes, exactly. And so much of what it is that we experience, we think, and it's overdetermined. It's like in a vacuum. We're like, oh my God, that's only happened to me. And like, well, actually, something very similar has happened to me, and this is how I worked it out. You can also learn, not only validate with the experience, which is so common. I mean, it's just incredible. That's why I'm doing this. Is what we lack is education. What we lack is connectedness. And if we could connect and educate one another, we could heal at much faster rates than the bottleneck traditional therapy provides us. It's just too slow. It's just an old way of doing things. And we've got so many new technologies now, and so many wonderful people, including Spouse But Addict, that have insight that can help us. Not just me. I really want people that that want to also share and learn in the community too, because we have a private group, and to share your insight there and in this way too. Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I'm really happy everybody was able to come on today. I am going to be more consistent with this though, 11 o'clock across the board, except for Thursdays. I'm going to do an evening session, and this week with Matt Pfeiffer. He's awesome. I've done a couple lives and a podcast with him. But I think that on Thursday at 6 Eastern Standard Time, but I'll definitely list this so you can see it. And we'll be talking about stages of a relationship. And he had a way of conceptualizing this. I don't know if it's his, but the way he talked about it, I like it. And I really want to be able to ask him some more questions about these stages of a relationship, because I think people with codependent tendencies trip up in one stage or another and start to really falter and like, how do I keep going? So definitely tune in for that on Thursday. Share that. I will put it up, get people to join, because I think when I have a conversation with Matt, it's generally pretty insightful kind of banter going back and forth, and we ask each other good questions. So the last thing is, I put the first post up for podcast. So I am doing Emotional Warrior Radio. If you want to do a session with me that's public, private, I don't use your name, but the audio is recorded like on a podcast, and I do it. It's kind of like Esther Perel. So you can go on and fill out an application on my website if you want to do it that way too. It's not a ton of sessions, but I'm generally thinking the first one's up if you want to hear it. Audio's a little wonky, but hey, you can hear it. I had it worked on. Oh, I started the first one. Awesome. The first one's about me. It's a little, I try to like break the mold. I'm really not interested in just always sounding like everyone else. So that first one's like 20 minutes about me, but this one is about a woman trying to set boundaries with her mother, and you'll see how I work, and you'll see how I share insight with her and get her thinking, and it will be a several episode journey. Anybody that wants to work with me, I don't do it like a one session, we got you locked up. Meaning like we've got all your problems knocked out. I really like to work more psychoanalytically and psychodynamically. So please apply. There is availability still. I think at some point the wait list will get pretty rough. So this is all brand new, starting last week. So I'm really excited and wanting to share this with you. But absolutely, I have got to run now. I appreciate everyone coming on, all the likes and shares and follows, and I will see you tomorrow. Have a wonderful day. Bye.